What's going on, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of Ask a CISSP. This is the extension of the other side of the firewall, where we talk about the latest and greatest cybersecurity news, as well as we highlight those movers and shakers and glass ceiling breakers, those people of color who've made it to the other side of the proverbial firewall. And why is it so special? Because it's the first one of 2026, and it will probably be the only episode for that week, right? So me and the guys are going to take the week off, and we're going to post this special Ask a CISSP instead. So definitely continue to check us out. We are a weekly cybersecurity podcast that is syndicated on WDJY 99.1 FM in the Atlanta metro area, as well as worldwide on the TuneIn app and your podcast platform of choice. So nothing's really changed. But again, I think we're just going to have the one episode this week because I will be at the Bills game, thanks to my lovely wife. Hit me up at the websites, RyanWilliamsSr.com, as well as ramcyber.io to look for those services. And of course, I had to plug the book. So again, The Other Side of the Firewall, the real life stories of those mover shakers and glass ceiling breakers. Speaking of which, on the show this week, we have Trey Robinson. So how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing just fine. About yourself? Thanks for having me on the show.
Cannot complain at all. So I'm glad to have you on the show. So for those who may not have seen the panel you and I were on with Aisha Hollins, so you and I both were on a panel with several other amazing members who I've hit them up with invites as well. So I should hopefully have them throughout the year. But again, Aisha Hollins is that tech connector, right? So Forensic Technology put together a panel. We talked about AI and governance and all that good stuff. And I was able to meet you on the panel, and I was like, I got to get you on the show. So if you can give everybody a little bit about your background and your cybersecurity business and what it does.
Sure, not a problem. So my name is Trey Robinson. I'm the CEO of TAS Technical Solutions. I've been in the IT industry for a little over 20 years at this time. Been in technology pretty much all my life. Surprisingly enough, I started off wanting to be an architect before I got into technology. And out of a fluke of my knowledge of video games at the time, that was how I got into technology and just been in it ever since. I started TAS Technical Solutions in 2018, and we've been kind of rolling ever since. TAS Technical Solutions is a managed service provider of IT solutions throughout the U.S. We have clients all over Dallas, Texas, as well as in California, and even in as far east over there in South Carolina. And we do anything and all things of technology. We're more of an infrastructure developer and consultant. And basically any technology that dealing with IT, we will basically either handle, or if you have any questions, we have partners that we partner with that will specialize in any items that we cannot handle.
No, awesome. And so I see the connection, right? Like you're good with numbers. So you wanted to be an architect starting out. I see that you're an LSU grad, pure science. So I'm famously known as a pure science dropout on the show. I always tell people I didn't have the discipline for it.
Actually, surprisingly enough, one of the confusing things I try to let people know is that I am a computer science major. I'm actually also a college dropout as well. The reason why, for my reason, was because of financial aid. I ended up running out of financial aid. There wasn't enough funds for me that I had my savings nor the work I could, so I could not finish. But I still took that knowledge and that dedication that I have for the schooling to try to continue forth and work my craft. And I always say I was going to go back, which eventually I still will. But at this time, I just was not able to finish. But it's still a goal of mine. I will do it before I take CISSP, that's for sure.
And so that's interesting. So you're more of the Mark Zuckerberg ilk, where they came in, did their college thing, and then came out and disrupted the industry, right? So you could be if you're not already a billionaire, you might be the next billionaire in tech space. So definitely keep my card. All right. For sure. Okay. So you attended LSU as a computer science major. You are now obviously a successful businessman with not only your LLC, but also a nonprofit. So what kind of bridged the gap between the two? What made you decide, okay, I'm going to go the route of an entrepreneur?
The reason why I actually went to the route of entrepreneur was because as I grew up in IT, I worked for small companies, I worked for large companies, I worked for enterprises. And one of the things about those of us who are in technology, that particular sector of the business becomes a revolving door for whatever reason. No matter how good you can be, no matter how innovative you can be, thing that I recognize is going to be one or two things that make or break a company when it comes to anything technology. And mind you, technology is everywhere. And it's either going to be ego or money. So in the midst of all that, I just kind of got tired of the rigmarole. And I just decided that I want to formulate a company that represents us engineers as humans versus a bill or just a number, because they think as long as you know how to turn on a computer and you know how to work a few screens, you're a computer major. And that's not exactly the case. I've seen it in both large as well as small companies. It was because of that that actually gave me the idea of the slogan of what we use, which is changing the way you see IT.
That's a great endeavor to try to humanize what is progressively becoming less human every day, right? IT, not only do I feel as though we are the load bearing wall that no one really cares about, but also there's companies that are just out there trying to replace humans with AI before they even know what AI is capable of doing. It's like the race to the bottom of the barrel, unfortunately, as opposed to using AI as a force multiplier. They're trying to get out of headcount and benefits and things of that nature. And it's already backfiring. I've already seen one company, they fired their cybersecurity department just to have to go out and hire contractors to augment the AI that they replaced them with. So it's pretty wild out there.
One of the things I recognize in the industry, I think that's one of the benefits of being a managed service provider is because when you work with different industries, you can see the different mindsets of each of the industries, from the government, which was my last large client, to the mom and pop shops who are basically terrified of technology and they just see it no more than as a device that sucks up electricity and can store their files. But again, technology is so much more than that. One of the items that I strive to do is to have them rethink of their approach of technology. And I try to tell them that you got to look at technology like a human employee in a certain way. Just like with the adoption of AI, which is more like you hiring a child to do a grown person's job. Your technology is just like a rookie employee that you're going to train up. However, if you're one of those numbers people, when you start looking at the cost, say for instance, say a infrastructure for a small business is going to cost the upwards of 40K, and that's a pretty reasonable number. And we're talking about the
Right.
network devices, the computers, and things of that nature. That sounds like a huge number right off the hand. However, when you think about people, most people don't want to settle for anything less than 50K a year. And with technology, if you spent 40K on this technology, and we're not even talking about even the upfront cost, you can actually spread that over time. And most technology can last over 5 years. So 40K at 5 years, you are basically looking at anything about $8,000 a year. You are not going to get an employee for no $8,000 a year, but yet that is the hardest working technology. That's the hardest working employee that you're going to have because it's going to be working 24/7. It's always going to be running. And just like humans, if you reboot your computer, that's just like them taking a nap or a power nap or something like that, like a human taking a power nap. You know, the humans need rest, computers need rest, and things of that nature. But they're going to keep going and keep going to the one day that employee is going to get replaced because as technology advances, you're going to have to upgrade and things of that nature. And that's just the nature of the game of any business. But again, when you look at the long-term investment of that, $8,000 a year for a hardworking employee that will literally work 24/7 versus a human, that's you got to change your mindset and how you take care of your products as well.
No, that is an interesting perspective. Yeah, I didn't really think about that. So it kind of bleeds into. I had a conversation with Ahmed Austin. He's Sci3 is his LLC. He also posed a question that was pretty interesting to me when it came to thinking of AI agents. So he would ask the question like, how many employees do you have? And then the answer would be, we're a team of 10 or 15 or 20 or whatever the scale is. And then he said, well, how many of those are human? And then it kind of makes you start to process like, okay, wait a minute, I do have, or I may have AI agents and things of that nature that are also out there doing work, getting spun up, spun down. So how many, actual employees do I have? How many identities are on my network at any given time? So it's very interesting to have that mindset, right? That's a very technologist mindset. So it always, whenever I hear things like that, I'm like, yeah, that is definitely something to think about. Also, I'm not an MSP, right? So I'm not thinking at scale like you are, right? More in the consulting realm, things of that nature. So did you start in the consulting arena first, or did you? How do you scale to MSP, or what was your journey to scale to being an MSP?
The reason why I scaled to do become a managed service provider versus just a main technology consultant was simply because there's so many different industries that need the help as well as the education behind it. And one of the things that I do like to pride myself on is training up on the information for individuals of what technology is. And I'm actually going to go ahead and point out to AI. As of right now, AI has been the buzzword all of 2025. One of the things about AI is that it has to learn. It's called artificial intelligence for a reason, because it has to learn what your business is about. But people expect that when they get a product, it's going to work right off the bat. And unfortunately, it will work the basic functions right off the bat. But like a regular employee, it has to learn the intricacies of what your business is. And it's going to make some mistakes until he gets it right. And then that also means that you're going to need a human touch to ensure that it also remains healthy. We are basically the doctors of technology. We make sure we keep it healthy. And that's just like the mechanics are the doctors of your car. They make sure that your car is healthy. It's going to do what it needs to do. It's going to work hard for you. But just like how owners have to take care of their employees, owners have to take care of their technology. It has the exact same concept, just in a different form.
No, that's very it's very deep when you think about it when it comes to different industries. So I've had some exposure outside of the DoD now that I'm
Can
out
you
on
say
the
that again?
civilian side. You're right. So I was well, I always joke with Shannon on the podcast because we always talk about how we didn't know how good we had it on the defense side because you must do. So these things, regardless of if it takes you 4 hours or 400 hours, your paid salary, you're under contract, you must do. And then when you come out to the civilian sector, you learn that there's a balance there. Like we can only do what we can with the budget, and we have to make sure we check specific boxes and then try to exceed those after we've met our thresholds. So when it comes to again those different industries, like working with a fintech versus working with early education company or working with a healthcare company, they all have different regulations and of course different needs for compliance, but they also have different baselines and thresholds when it comes to how much budget can they spend. Right, the hospital is going to most likely spend that money on equipment and personnel, right? Doctors and nurses and clinicians in general are pretty expensive. So we were seeing a lot of more rural hospitals and things of that nature just are not up to snuff because of it. So I would be interested to know kind of where you're seeing pain points when it comes to being an MSP working with different industries.
You pretty much hit the nail on the head. It kind of boils down to the budget because people are looking at that ROI or that rate of return when it comes to technology. And we consider ourselves a nonprofit specialist because nonprofits are probably the most underfunded businesses that are out there. And unfortunately, technology is a necessary tool that is needed for all industries, regardless of what business that you have. My business specializes in ensuring that you get what you need most within the constraints of your budget at that time. And we also speak with leadership, CFOs, or if you're a much larger company, how to budget that and stretch it over time to get to the place where they need. And I try to create anywhere between a 12-month to 36-month plan at minimum of, okay, by this particular time, we should be at this point based upon what we're trying to do with the amount of budget that we have and the amount of time that we have. Budget, time, and effort all come into play when raising up technology and get people into their particular compliance for that particular industry. Nonprofits, mom and pop shops are hurt the hardest, but it's not as painful as they think it is if they get a chance to sit down and listen to proper consultants that are familiar with their industry and get them to understand the importance and how to invest properly, which is another reason that as a MSP that we are partnering with these particular companies to help them understand like, hey, we're not here to be a bill, but we're trying to be a partner and an asset to you because you're going to be an asset to us. And
Right.
this is where we're going to work in tandem. And that's what keeps the humanity side of technology when we engage individuals and leadership in that particular format. I'm not one of those leaders that is not that's afraid to get their hands dirty. I'll get down and dirty with it. In fact, I feel like I'm like the CEO, well, the former CEO of Honda, where I'm more of an engineer than a CEO. But
Got you.
but I do want to ensure that, when leadership is speaking with my company, that they know who leadership is. And we're gonna go from there.
That's awesome. Especially your focus, like not to say your focus, but your specialty being with nonprofits, because I do feel like they're neglected a lot in this space, like especially when it comes to just baselining, right? Because again, you said their budgets are constrained, and I've seen where, like, where I'm from Buffalo, New York, our city closest to us is Rochester. So Rochester Institute of Technology, RIT, has set up cybersecurity clinics for mom and pops and nonprofits, things of that nature, where the school basically has grants to go into the community and then help them out and baseline them and things of that nature. So the need is definitely there. It's just there's not a lot of people filling that void, and it's good to see companies such as yours taking the time to help. Because again, I always pitch it here on the show. Cybersecurity is national security. Whether you're a mom and pop or small to mid-sized business, like we're all in the same fight to keep our clients, our customers, information safe and secure, because ultimately it can hurt citizens at scale. So that's awesome.
Information is gold. And whether you were former military or security, secret service, or anything like that, information is gold. In fact, information is what gets you the green or the gold, as you could say. And that kind of ties into some of the other smaller sections of my nonprofit that when we get to that particular portion, I'll explain on that as well.
And I want to definitely switch gears to your nonprofit and how important it is. But before we do that, are there any current initiatives or upcoming initiatives that people should know about your MSP? Again, we've become syndicated, so we're a little bit more out there. So maybe somebody in Georgia might need your services or be inspired to reach out to you because you have a certain initiative that they can, connect with or partner with.
At this time, the only initiative I have right now is only going to be local at this time, in the state of Texas, which is to uh, get other struggling industries such as our education and as well as our local government kind of get up to snuff. I'm also going to be going to a couple of conventions with nonprofits, with my own nonprofit, to also let them know that, hey, that there is help right around the corner and local. Because the other thing, again, when it comes to technology, is that when you're dealing with individuals, people want to see faces. And when they know they have local help, it kind of gives them more ease that someone can actually go there in person and they can see who's actually working instead of a ghost. Because you never know who's doing what, and people just see a mouse moving on there. And let's be real. It actually freaks out a lot of people, especially those in our older generation, because it's just like, what the heck is this? Like, how are you over there in India and you're talking, and you're messing with my machine? That's crazy. But when they're able to see an individual from face to face, it just lets them know there's more at ease. And then on top of that, self as well as other employees, we also speak perfect English, which also, I know it sounds crazy, but depending on the country that you're in, speaking the native language is also something that makes people feel much more at ease. One company that I used to work with, which was Cobham Ltd, they're the ones that actually helped create the foundation of how I wanted my company to run for TAS. And they ensured that within each region, they had specialists that were native to the language. So whether it's any tickets, because they were an international company, they were aerospace defense companies similar to Raytheon, L3, and General Dynamics. But it was a wonderful company to work for. But I like how they approached everything. So if you're in France, they make sure they have French speakers or people that knew French dealing with that technology, because speaking with somebody that's familiar with the native language is just helpful. And I also want to be able to provide that for my local constituents as well as across the U.S. as well.
And yeah, I can definitely see how that can, ease some friction points when it comes to nuance. Like, your company sounds awesome. I, I definitely want to dig more into it and what you're specifically doing, because I don't talk to too many MSPs. Like, I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs and CEOs from a large swath of different companies, but a lot of them are not in the MSP space, or they're no longer in the MSP space, or they've gone into the MSSP space. So I know there's some nuance there as well. I definitely have to have you back on the show to dig a little bit deeper, because I tell everybody it's no secret. Like a lot of these questions I ask are for the audience to educate them, but I'm just like, my wheels are turning as well. I'm like, how can I do this? How can I bridge this gap? So it's always good to have these conversations. But I do want to pivot into your nonprofit and how important that is as well. So if you could kind of introduce that and what made you decide to go that route when it comes to mental health, and how do you find the time to juggle both your MSP and your nonprofit and everything else that you're probably doing in the community?
Well, yeah, learning time management is a very important thing when it comes to being a business owner. If you want to become an entrepreneur, three skill sets are essential, which is learning how to budget, time manage, and public speaking, because you're going to be speaking a lot. So you got to, well, actually, presentation, not really public speaking, but presentation. You got to present to whatever audience that you're trying to go to. Now, when it came to the men's corner kind of came by accident, honestly. It started off with me being a single dad for the first 10 years of my child's life. And when I finally got married, he's lost a lot of nuances that were missing in his life, because while I have a certain skill set, there were still some missing items that a two-parent household can have. And when that child is missing kind of like the other half, there's certain things that he missed. His is social skills, because his dad is not going to be out there, was socializing at the time, because all I knew at the time was to grind.
Gotcha.
And all he knew what his dad do is that he works, he comes home, he does what he needs to do, and then repeats the cycle. And sometimes he plays with me. So I'm all that he knew. And as he was getting older, and I was recognizing that, he was awkward around other kids and things of that nature. And I was just like, man, there's got to be a better way, to help him, get more sociable and understand social norms and things of that nature. And that's where somewhere down the line, the men's corner actually gave birth to that, because I've also learned that young men, especially children, whether in single parent households or dual parent households, if you grew up poor as well, there's a lot of mental hurdles that you go through, and that's when I started really thinking that how can I really help my community like I want to help my child, because I don't want to just keep it just in just one circle. And I thought about what was important to me, which was addressing your past, which where counseling was going to come in, and how to prepare for your future, which is when the mentorship came in. And that's what gave birth to the men's corner. We started the men's corner in January of 2022, which is, go figure, right during the pandemic time.
I was gonna say,
And,
pandemic times.
and I'm listening to other men, even older than my son, struggling, because those who are extroverts need that human interaction, and they were going stir crazy. And it's just like, okay, how can we help that? And it's just like the men's corner could be a place where it could bridge that gap, where they have a sense of community, they have a sense of home, which goes to the slogan of the men's corner, which is finding a little peace in your corner.
When it comes to the environment, so when I think pandemic times, I think it may have started out virtually, and then did it remain virtual, or are you guys in person as well? Like, how do you guys meet, and how can people who may be interested in it join?
The men's corner, we do meet in person from time to time, nowhere near as often as I would like. It's usually about once a quarter, only because basically personal work and the work life of other individuals is just really hard, especially with myself as well as the other team members. But we do try to find ways to ensure that we get together, have communications, and continue to form that unity. We either do it through phone calls, which we utilize a phone system that communicates with everybody, worldwide, without the restraints of giving out your cell phone, because there's a privacy thing. And we also ensure that any individuals that do come into the men's corner have a good background check, because we do work with minors, because we work with individuals ages 14. And our stopgap is around 40, because usually after 40, most men are going to be hard-headed for life, to be honest with you. There are some
Right.
men
There's
out
some truth to that, right? Yeah. You
I
kind of
mean,
set in your ways.
yeah, I mean, there are some that you could teach old dogs some new tricks. I would say I'm one of them, but at the same time, but some people are very set, and it just gets really difficult to get them to address certain things, because they know what they know, and that's all they want to know. Versus this is what else you can know, and that's why I believe it's even more important to get these young men. The reason why I chose 14, because they're basically at the cusp of the adult age, as a freshman in high school, and they're going to need to know what life is going to be looking like. And where we are versus where they are, there's still a gap. And that's where the volunteers come in who speak on their behalf because they can relate closer due to their particular age. And those are some of the things that we try our best to ensure that we all kind of understand the line, because what they did back in the 1970s is not what they did in the 90s. And what we did in the 90s is not what they do in the 2010s and so forth.
Right.
There's just some generational gaps that while there's some functions that are always going to remain true, there's just, you can call them like the Murphy's Law almost in a way. They're basically a law because they're just going to be a matter of fact no matter what generation you are. But there are some nuanced changes that one is going to be more privy to than the other. And that's where we all can learn. And the bottom line of that is that for us men, the 4 areas that I believe that we need the most help in, especially for those that grew up in rural and poor situations, is mental health, which is where counseling and mentorship come in, and finances, which is where we do financial education as well as credit education. Because these are areas that are not taught in school nowadays. And even if you do take educational classes on these topics, they don't really give the real life details that we need to actually understand. And that's one of the things that we try to present. There's 2 other areas that we definitely want to get more developed, which is tutoring, but we need more educators to get involved. And right now our education system is struggling. I'm going to leave it at that. And then also career workshops, because we got individuals that like where people who go to college spend all that money and still not doing anything in that field. And then there's
Right.
others who don't go to college, but they don't have any direction. And these career workshops can assist with them. Because one of the things I recognize growing up that's still true today is that people are saying, oh, you need something, you need a college degree or you can't have this job. And there are those that get the college degree and they're like, but you don't have any experience. Well, I got the degree, give me a chance so I can get the experience. And it's always that back and forth of, quite frankly, stupidity. And
Yeah,
instead of giving those individuals
a
chance,
logic loop. Yeah,
yeah,
where
those-
you never can come out on top.
exactly. So I want to introduce career workshops where they can actually work in the industry, get some experience under their belt. So that way they know if that is something that they want to get into and kind of go full on and then create a pathway for that. It's definitely still a work in progress. There's so many things I still need to learn when it comes to that portion, but it's definitely a passion that I have for it.
No, that's a noble cause, especially in our community. Like you said, there's not a lot of support. There's not a lot of people doing it. It's something I could use when I was growing up, right? Growing up in a single household with my mother in public housing, right? There was no real outlet like this, right? The internet didn't really exist the way it does now. And there weren't a lot of groups doing education, mentorship, financial literacy didn't exist in my neighborhood. There's more, not to be stereotypical, but there's more check cashing places and,
And
pawn
payday
shops that
loans.
were banks. Like banks didn't really exist until you went further and further out of the inner city. So some of that has changed, and the internet has empowered us much more than it was in the 80s and 90s. But still, to have a group of individuals where you can go to them and talk about your mental health, gain that financial literacy, and then, like you said, you're going to work in towards education and career workshops. That's amazing. So I definitely want to stay posted and tuned into that, and the platform help you out any way it can as you continue to grow and move on that effort, because I think that's amazing. So
Appreciate it.
definitely commendable. So with all that being said, right, you're a hardworking man. You have your business. You said it's been going on for a decade, if I'm correct.
Oh no, like I said, I started my business back in 2018, so it's gonna
28.
be, so this is gonna be year 7 for us.
Okay, so
Year 8,
almost a,
yeah, year 8
got you.
this year, yeah, because it's 2020.
Just shy of a decade. Got you. And then you also have your nonprofit. You have a family, like super busy, right? Entrepreneurs. Like what I've noticed is entrepreneurs are like they can't sit down. They can't be still because they always see something to fix, opportunity to be had, a challenge to overcome. So whenever I ask this question, it's mixed bag. What are you doing for yourself when it comes to relaxation or things that help you unwind? Because it could be work for all I know.
Work is only uh, when my personal life is a little too chaotic for me to handle. Having something to zero in on and focus exercises don't brain muscles. But for me, The main thing, which goes right back to the time management, is dedicating a day, at least a day, to disconnect. And because I'm around technology all the time, I actually disconnect from technology.
Wow, that's a hard one.
And so what I do and how I do that is, talk to my son, talk to my wife, talk to my children, let them know like, hey, this Saturday I'm gonna be this and this and this. But if you need to get hold of me, call your mom. I tell my friends that
Gotcha.
they're like you're more than welcome to come by or whatnot, but I'm using this time to disconnect. And what I would do, I'll sit in my backyard, just listen to nature. I would take a drive, uh, just get somewhere outside of my box of work and try to enjoy life, think of other ideas, other things I would enjoy, places I want to go, and continue to develop any dreams that I have and any goals that I have, so I know how to reach to that particular next level. And that's what helps keep me going. I always think of the next big thing that you want to do. I wanna get a new C8 Stingray. Okay, how do I get that? Well, I need to do A, B, C, and D. Okay.
Right.
Well, and then after that, you could turn that dream into a goal, and then that goal becomes a possibility.
No, that's awesome, especially the unplugging. So I do not do that. I need to do that more often. So I do go in the backyard. We had a pool uh, built last year, so it's almost been there for a year. So I go out there and stare at the pool or get in it. One of the two. More staring than getting in it. But that is kind of my happy place, so to speak.
And
But
also
there's
helps with
a
the relationships as well, especially if you're married.
yeah,
If you can dedicate, some time to be with your spouse in some form of way, it helps keep the relationship fresh as well as keep it going strong. Because we all get busy, we all have time, but we got to learn to make time for the other person, and vice versa. If you have a spouse that's super busy, get her to stop, unwind and get reconnected. Find ways to find time with each other, to keep things fresh, keep things going. Because one of the things that we also teach in the mentorship programs, like when it comes to relationships, is that in order to keep things connected, you got to make sure you make time for each other properly. And we're not just talking about just, intimacy in that manner. You know,
right.
you need to do more than that, to get connected. Have them mentally stimulated, to get them emotionally stimulated, like cook together, clean together, have a child together. Movies and dinner dates are great, but sometimes we should be able to do more with more simple acts, such as taking a walk together. And then
Okay.
and then have simple conversations of, okay, babe, I just won $1 million. What are we doing? Type thing, and see how that mindset is going, how their dreams are going, and things of that nature. Because if things change and their ideas have changed and it hasn't been communicated, you won't know until you start spending that time again. And that goes also the same with kids. Try to find a way to have time with your kids. Even though it was a little late for me, I did that with my son in high school. I started to go to the park with them more, at least, ride bikes with them for about an hour or something like that. Try to find time also with your kids. Again, when you're an entrepreneur, time is gold, but if you know how to manage your time, you can dedicate at least something to let them know that the people around you, that they're not forgotten. And that's kind of my nuance of all that. That's kind of how I unplug, is to get reconnected with those that I'm close with in some form of fashion, as well as taking time for myself. Because Lord knows I need time for myself. And as an introvert, that me time is even that much more important, which is another difference. If you're an introvert, time is more important than hanging out with people. While introverts, being more around people is more important than being around themselves. But again, you still got to dedicate something to both to ensure that you remain both mentally and emotionally strong to handle the physical ordeals of the world.
That is definitely a word. So you guys came here to hear about Trey Robinson's cyber origin story, but you not only got that, but then you also got a very meaningful talk about what you should be trying to learn and focus and do for yourself and for those that you love. Like deep and profound. We got to do this again. There's so much I've left on the table that we need to talk about. But again, we our time is finite. So I greatly appreciate you joining me on the podcast. Again, I'm gonna make sure that you or send another invite to bring you back on so we can talk a little bit more detail about both your uh, uh, MSP as well as your nonprofit it's a good mentoring session, right? I need to hear that as well. Like I checked a lot of those boxes off the list. Don't get me wrong. I try my hardest, but there's always something, right, that you could be doing
It's just
to
like reading the Bible. You can read the same verse, 100 times, but at the same time, you can read that verse, but for some odd reason, it hit different at that time. And then you're just like, oh, never thought about it in this particular brand of using this verse. Okay. And again, I'm not saying, I'm ultra religious, but, that is the Bible I state is a moral rule book. So you don't have to be religious, but if you want to understand good morality, the Bible is a good place to start.
very well said. Yeah. So, hey, it's definitely been a very robust conversation. So please, if you have not already, please continue to subscribe, like, share all that good stuff of the podcast, so I can continue to have inspirational and amazing guests like Trey Robinson on the show. This year is going to be action packed. I already have 11 guests booked. And that was just off of the first round of invite. So I expect to be booked all year, which is an amazing and humbling experience. Hit up the website, theothersideofthefirewall.com, if you want to pick up the guide at a discount, or you can pick it up anywhere books are sold. Hit me up personally. I'm at Rai Security Guy on LinkedIn and pretty much all the social media platforms. Go to ramcyber.io if you want to check out our service offerings. And then you can go to ryanwilliamssenior.com if you want to check out all of my projects. I'm trying to hopefully book a couple of speaking sessions this year. And then, Trey, where can they find you if they're trying to get in contact with you?
All right. Well, to find us with TAS Technical Solutions, you can find us at www.tas-technical.com, or for those young men that are in the Texas area, because we are definitely limited, at the Men's Corner, you can find us at www.themenscorner.
There it is. Stay safe, stay secure, and Happy New Year.
New Year.